Hi everyone, it's Joth here. Welcome to the SEBA Cast edition. It's great that I've got Lisa Kerry with me. Lisa, how are you doing?
I'm all right, thank you. Good to see you, Joth.
Lisa, we're delighted that you're going to be joining us for our Leaders and Ministers Conference in February 2025. It seems like a long way off, but it will soon come round.
It will indeed.
Thank you for being willing to come and join us.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
It'd be great just to introduce you a little bit to those that are listening, those that are watching, and those that are thinking they're coming to the conference and may not know who Lisa Kerry is. So who is Lisa Kerry?
Well, I'm sure most of them won't know who I am, but so I'm the regional minister team leader for the Central Baptist Association. I've been doing that for 2 and a bit years now, be 2.5 years by the time I see you in February. Before that, I was a minister at Croxley Green Baptist Church for 8.5 years. I went there as the associate, as an AM, and I was in a team of 3, and then I was the senior minister by the time I left. But had 8.5 really happy years there in Hertfordshire. And before that, I did my training in 2 churches in Southeast Essex. So to start with, in my sending church, Wesley Baptist Church in Leigh-on-Sea.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So we were there for 12 years altogether. And then I did the end of my training at a local ecumenical project in Hutton and Shenfield. It's probably the poshest church I'll ever work in my life. They were absolutely delightful. But churches that have their own tennis club is a different thing altogether.
What brought you into ministry? What was the calling of God?
Oh, well, I suppose to be fair, actually, I have to sort of go right back. So my husband and I both trained at the same hospital at the Royal London in Whitechapel, and we were both really involved in the Christian Union there. I was the vice president for a year. And it was a huge Christian union. It was very unusual in that it was medics, dentists, physios, nurses, people that worked in the hospital. So it was over 100 people. It was more like a church, really. Or most of our friends, people that we are still friends with, all felt a call to the mission field, really, at that point. And Alan and I just knew that wasn't going to be us. We knew we had a passion for the local church. But we spent most of the first 15 years of our marriage assuming it would be Alan that got called into ministry and testing that out and trying to find the right time for him to leave medicine to go and do that. And it wasn't until God really spoke very clearly to him at New Wine one year, actually, that he wanted him to stay in medicine. That we started to think, oh, maybe we've heard this a bit wrong. Actually, maybe it's me. And I think we both found that a bit tricky. He found it a lot less tricky than I did, but we pushed against it for quite a long time, mostly because I was quite happy in nursing. I didn't want to leave. But God made it quite clear in my church, and I think appealed to my need to be better equipped. So I did the Equip to Minister course on the guise of that'll be enough, won't it, Lord? I'll just do that. And then I'll be better equipped doing the things that I'm already doing, and I can carry on my nursing career. But I think within about 3 months, I realised that trying to run my department at the hospital and do pastoral care in my church was going to send me off the deep end. I don't know how bivocational ministers do it. I really don't. I couldn't do it. So I gave up nursing at that point and realised that no, God was calling me into this. And then, of course, in his graciousness and his goodness, he gave me an absolute desire to do it. So that in the end, it was an easy yes. But it had taken quite a lot of patience, I think, on his part to get me to that place.
Let's just hear a little bit about who you are, what you like to do. I mean, if you've got spare time, Lisa, what's the kind of things that you do? You ever have any spare time?
Well, yes, of course we do, but it sometimes feels like that's a bit scarce, doesn't it? But I guess so. Who we are, we have 2 grown-up daughters who are both married, and 2 grandsons now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we have Enzo, who is 2.5, who is an absolute joy. That's our eldest daughter's little boy, and then my younger daughter has just had Arthur, who at the time we're recording this is 3 weeks old.
Oh, wow.
I'm afraid we've become those very boring people that just think their grandchildren are the best thing that's ever happened. And I do actually really switch off when we're with them, so that is a really, really good thing. We try to walk. We used to walk a lot more, but we still love to go on walking holidays and to walk when we can. Um, I like to think that we still ski, but I'm discovering that actually the last skiing holiday I was on, I used to be able to do 5 days skiing and be absolutely fine, and now it's sort of one day on, one day off. Yeah, but we like those kind of things. I wouldn't say we're particularly outdoorsy people, but we enjoy those kind of things. But we're also like many people of our age, we've got grandchildren coming, which is wonderful, but we've also got really elderly parents that we're trying to honour and look after and journey with through dementia and all those horrible things that happen at the end. So I guess, free time gets rationed out between the things that give you life and the things that you are called to do as daughters and sons, as well as parents and grandparents. Yeah, so I think that would probably describe our life pretty well. Yeah.
I mean, it does sound very busy.
Mm,
And of course, when you're doing regional ministry as well, which is a bit endless.
it is, yeah. It's like the housework, isn't it?
Yeah, because I know that you're doing this PhD on top
Yeah,
of all that.
I
And
know.
I'm sitting here thinking, how on earth did you ever get to the point where you thought, oh, I got capacity to do a PhD?
I know. It is a bit of a joke. I mean, see the thing. This is God knows what I'm like, and so when I had my last sabbatical, when I was still, so it was in COVID, and I couldn't go anywhere. Obviously, I think we had a few days away in the Lake District walking, but that was about it. Nobody could go anywhere, could they? But I very much needed my sabbatical, and it was suggested to me that the thing I was interested in writing about, which was professionalism and Baptist ministry and how that might compare with, Baptist ministry formation and the training that I did as a nurse. I thought I'll just write a little thing about that, think about that during my sabbatical. But it was suggested to me that actually that would make quite a good PhD and I should put in a proposal. But I was also warned that, most people have to have several bites at the cherry with their proposal. So I thought, perfect. I can do this stuff, which I'm interested in. I'll do the reading, put in the proposal. They'll say no, job done, back to work. I've had to think about things. Um, anyway, put in the proposal and they said yes straight away. So that kind of scuppered that. But I was also thought, well, that's great because actually, I've always been studying while I was at Croxley. I did a master's during my NAMS, and I know it makes me a better minister if I'm thinking about stuff. So I thought, well, this is great. Croxley were a great church. They gave us 2 days off a week, very healthy. So one of my days was always a study day usually. So it all fitted fine. But then I get called into regional ministry, and there's an element about that it's given me a much more helpful place to think about the stuff that I'm studying. And now that I'm just about to embark on my fieldwork, it gives me a scope to talk to ministers in a way that I probably wouldn't have had such easy access to. But trying to fit it in time-wise is even more of a challenge. But I also recognize that if I stopped doing it, I would just fill that time with more work and I would probably be less effective. So I think for me it's an important thing that helps keep me healthy, even though it can also feel like an added stress at times. If I have a good day at studying, I know that it's I think it is that thing of I want to worship God with my heart, my soul, and my mind, and this is the mind bit for me. Helps me do that. And it would be nice if it culminates in a, if I actually get it finished before I retire, that'd be great. But, you know,
I'm sure. I'm sure. Well, we hope you get it finished before you retire. We'll be able to read it then, won't we? I mean, it seems to me there are a number of reasons why I think we're going to really appreciate your input into the SEBA and those who are in church leadership, but also in chaplaincy and ministers across our association. And partly, you're very engaging and you've been in ministry. You know what it is to be in ministry. But part of it is because you were part of the NHS, which is a very different environment, I guess, to many of our local churches or church leaderships or the ministry that we might find ourselves in, which is, I mean, I guess the NHS, you had structures around you, you were working in teams, you had functions to do. Whereas ministry is a bit freer, isn't it? I was going to say you make it up every morning, but there is that element of that.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that was one of the things that freaked me out at the beginning. That my last 8 years in nursing, I'd been working in a catheter lab where we did, we put stents in people's hearts, in people's livers, kidneys, you name it. We could stick a stent in it. But it's like working in theatres. So you have a list, you know what you're doing all day. You've got one patient after another, you know which doctor's coming in. You're never sitting there thinking, well, I don't know, how shall I use my time today? Because whereas you go into ministry and you think, well, I can decide what I'm doing with my time today. A completely different way of being. And that did freak me out a bit at the start, I have to be honest. And probably still accounts for my tendency to overfill my diary, which, I think it's hard to not cram it in like a theatre list, to be honest. But that isn't a good thing. That isn't a good thing.
So Lisa, reflecting back on the NHS, are there certain things that you look back and say, actually, in ministry, we could really do with these principles to kind of cross over? Are there things that you've dragged with you and you're kind of sharing with others?
That's a great question, and that's a lot of the motivation for wanting to do the study, because although I don't want to look back on my NHS experience of training with rose-tinted glasses, because there were times when it was just awful, really thrown in at the deep end. But one of the things I think is really helpful is we had this sort of, it's a bit of a maxim that people will recognise, the see one, do one, teach one thing, where certainly for all the major practical tasks that I learned to do as a nurse, I was shown how to do it, usually a couple of times. Then someone would watch me do it and reflect on how well I'd done it and talk to me about that, even in the midst of a busy ward. And in fact, you might even ask the patient, how was it? So I can remember the first time I gave an intramuscular injection and I had to go off early to tea because I felt so sick after I'd done it. But the patient who'd been had sickle cell anemia, had been having them for years, gave me sort of like, a full feedback of, well, if you do this and do that, it'd be much better if you did this. And then it was just inherent in NHS culture that you were a walking teacher. Whatever you knew how to do, you shared that information in a very patronizing way with each other. Someone who is more senior to you, a more senior student nurse, may not have learned how to do a certain thing, and well, you know how to do it. Okay, let's share that then. And I think that's a cultural trope that we could learn a lot from in ministry. I think we do it a bit in clusters. We might say, oh, has anybody done this recently, or has anybody got a liturgy for this? But that real reflection of watching each other's practice and feeding into that and recognizing that, how many of us had already done several funerals by the time we were taught how to do a funeral at college? I just can't imagine any other profession where you'd let people go and have a go at something that important.
So I've got a confession here. So my first funeral, I didn't do formation. They didn't require it when I was around. I'm sure it was about, but I didn't do it. So I didn't do any of this. How do you do a wedding? How do you do a funeral? So I've got this funeral to do. I haven't got a clue. haven't got a Scooby of what I'm meant to
Yeah.
do. So all I did is I found a local Baptist minister down the road at Potter Street, and I just said, Mike, how do you do it? And he just gave me a template.
Perfect.
And yeah, but I never told this family that this was the first funeral that.
No, well, you don't, do you? Yeah, I mean, I mean, that's perfect. I think that is a professional response, isn't it? To, I don't know how to do this. What do? I go and find somebody who can at least talk me through it, because I recognise that you only get one go at this for the family, don't you? You can't go back and do it again.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's a really laudable trait of people that are wanting to do a good thing.
And in your PhD, you're looking at this kind of balance between, professionalism and, I guess, what's the other side of the balance? But just trying to balance.
I think I've tried to coin the phrase relatable excellence.
Okay.
Because I think being relatable is really important to us as Baptists, because we don't set ourselves apart as in being above, do we? We set ourselves apart in terms of the servant nature of what we're doing. There's a bit of a thing that I explore where there's like a golden mean with professional behavior. There's all these aspects of professional behavior, and there's a kind of golden mean in the middle where you hit the sweet spot, but it's possible to go either way and be really unhealthy. Elitism is one of the really problematic things about professionalism that we wouldn't want to have. But and so if you went full on for elitism, that would make you very unapproachable, be a really negative thing. But if you go full on the other way, where you say, well, I'm just completely like another person, I'm not any different at all, then you downgrade what we're called to in ministry, and probably somewhere in the middle there's that sweet spot of, yeah, people have a respect for the office because of what Jesus has said about it, but they don't stick us on a pedestal, because that's really unhealthy. So yeah, I guess quite a lot of it might be about trying to hit those sweet spots with those sociological things, but understanding them from a ministry and a biblical point of view.
And I guess in that uniqueness, that's a real challenge to us, because finding that balance and that healthy balance that enables us to understand ourselves well and look after ourselves, because many ministers don't look after themselves. We were in ministry because we wanted to serve and we wanted to give and we wanted to support people, and we just keep giving and giving and giving until we fall over. So finding that good health for ourselves, but at the same time being able to help other people be healthy. I mean, we're calling this, healthy me, healthy you. Is that a good title? I think there is something really important about being a healthy ourselves, so that we can enable others to be healthy.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, just one of the things that springs to mind. So I just mentioned clerical dress. One of the things that helps you to be healthy in the NHS is that you have a uniform that you can take off at the end of the day to just be yourself. You leave your scrubs behind and you walk out of that, and nobody knows that you're a nurse or a doctor. Because as ministers, and particularly as Baptist ministers, we don't have a uniform that we can take off. That's helpful in some ways, because it can act as a barrier for some people, but it's also unhealthy in the sense that there's no boundary for us either. Sometimes I think we would all feel a bit more comfortable if we could put off that professional persona just every now and again, mark that, okay, I'm home now and I'm just me, because I'm not wearing this stuff. I'm not, and I realise that Anglicans don't wear all their full stuff the whole time, I realise that. But there is something quite symbolic about that it is healthy. And you're now wanting to be, available, approachable. This is just me. The downside of that is, well, this is just me the whole time. I never get to be anything but a minister. And that's part of the cost of a calling, but it can be a cost to our mental health as well if we're not careful.
Lisa, I think when you come and join with us in February, I think it's going to be a really helpful conversation. I think it's going to be a conversation to some extent. I mean, I know you're going to be
I hope
presenting
so.
some stuff and some of your thinking, but we have lots of conversations around the table, around coffee, around a drink in the evening or whatever it may be, through all those soft spaces as well, where we can kind of reflect together, because it is such a difficult journey as a minister to kind of get that right balance and to be able to say to yourself, it's okay, you can put things down. I was smiling when you were talking about the uniform, because I remember a minister who said to me once, I put a tie on and I go to my study, and when I come out my study I take my tie off. I mean, I'm not advocating that. I mean, look at me with my weird fish top. But and I've never owned a dog collar at all. But I mean, when I turn my computer off, I do tell myself it's okay.
Yeah,
I forgive myself for all the things I haven't done today, and I can
absolutely.
go and light the fire next door and go and
Yeah,
rest.
yeah.
And when I go on
Those
holiday,
rituals are so important, aren't they?
yeah. And I think that, I mean, I've never really thought about it, but I think those kind of things help. But also, I think sometimes we beat ourselves up and tell ourselves we don't know what we're doing, when actually the Lord has equipped us really well to do the task. There is a reason why He's called us, and He has gifted us in such a way so that we might lead His church. And actually, our churches need good ministers,
Absolutely. Yeah,
leaders within God's people, and those that equip the saints for the glory of Jesus, are really, really important, and they're a precious gift. Well, Lisa, we really look forward to you being part of us. Hopefully it'll be a great fun time. I'm sure the sun will shine at the end of February, so maybe snow on the ground, who knows?
who knows? But I'm sure it'll be great fun. I'm really looking forward to it.
It's a lovely place to be, so we're looking forward to hearing more from you. But thank you for your time today and for sharing with us in this podcast.
Thank you for having me, Jen. Yeah, it's really good to be part of it. So thank you.
Bless you. You look fine.
Okay.
Yeah. We don't want to be too professional.
No, don't want them. Don't want them
You know,
thinking they're getting something they're
people
not.
thinking we're professional. I mean, you might think we know what we're doing.